everyone, welcome to our Human Discussions collections of talks where we chat with inspiring people all about humans, human brands, humans as consumers, and much more. You kind of get a common theme, right? My name is Kate Nightingale and I'm a consumer psychologist and founder of human experience consultancy called Style Psychology. And we work with retail, hospitality, and tech brands across brand strategy, customer experience, design, and innovation. And our mission is to create a better world by making brands more human. Today, I'm extremely excited to be joined by actually one of our clients, Jochen Schmidt, who is a VP of Distribution and Real Estate at Swarovski. And kind of no surprise, we will be talking about the new role and how the pandemic is affecting the new role of the physical store. So welcome, Jochen. Please just introduce yourself.
Hello, Kate. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. Jochen Schmidt, working for 13 years now already for Swarovski, taking care over the last couple of years of retail architecture, developing new concepts, but also overseeing the distribution landscape on a global scale to have a healthy and profitable distribution mix. Challenging times ahead or right now with all what's going on, but it's going well so far. So thanks for having me.
Oh, this is absolutely my pleasure, Jochen. I definitely wanted to share all of your wisdom that I've learned throughout our work together. So it's amazing to have you here. So let's start with this idea of the role of the actual physical store. You know, I'm super passionate about it, and we have been seeing a lot of the changes in that role throughout the previous years. And obviously pandemic only accelerated a lot of these changes. So if we look kind of 5 to 10 years ahead, what do you believe should be the role of the store? Not what it will be, but what it should be, the ideal dream scenario.
I think we need to differentiate between the different formats the retailers have out there, and not every store will have the same purpose like we maybe see today. Also with us looking back, every store was somehow treated in the same way. I always compare it with a kind of pyramid. I would see on the top of the pyramid with maybe the most brand impact, pop-up stores and disruptor stores, concept stores, which have a complete different purpose to a regular store today, which should attract new consumers, create really a buzz around the brand. I think this is what we're planning to do in terms of putting more focus on that part of the format within the different channels. And then as the next thing I see as a major role for the bigger brands, having a good distribution footprint of flagship stores where you express the brand really deep with all the facets from a product point of view, from a service point of view, from a brand history point of view, explain your products, the craftsmanship behind your product, talk about sustainability aspects. I think this is the place where you can show the full picture of your brand and what you stand for. And then you have, we call it A/B stores, good locations, but you can't afford maybe a flagship store, or it doesn't make sense to have a second flagship store in the city. So you have your good locations, maybe also B locations where you have the full experience, but not to the extent like a flagship store. And then you maybe have also C locations, and those are necessary to provide accessibility to your consumer. As we're seeing also new trends coming up, and maybe we can take a closer look at this at a later stage, influenced by the pandemic, home office, but also new city concepts will influence a new traffic pattern within a city. And therefore I see also smaller stores necessary for the brands, with maybe less capex investment, lower investments to keep them profitable. smaller footprint, because a consumer is just looking for a purchase for your brand, and you need to provide accessibility. So this is kind of what I foresee in the future, a much more differentiated approach when it comes to locations, with a clear ranking between disruptors, flagship stores, and your store fleet.
This is a very interesting sort of divide, because yes, obviously all the brands kind of have a certain sort of retail portfolio, but as you are saying, majority of those concepts have been basically just a minimized version of, you know, of the bigger kind of concept idea, with a very strong accent on purchase, right? And I noticed that you barely mentioned anything about purchase, and actually said it is not a store to purchase, it is a store where customer can access the brand. Maybe it's more like a showroom where they can sort of explore, or maybe meet the brand, connect with it in some form or another, and perhaps maybe buy later online. So that actually leads me very nicely to another question. So that multi-channel element. So if we kind of consider the role of the store, but obviously the role of the store in some form or another is not alien to, you know, to the role of other channels. They're all sort of intertwined in customers' minds, right? So how can we sort of make sure that each channel, especially the store, fulfills something absolutely unique and special that is literally not possible, and also on purpose not existent and not available in other channels, so we can get those customers to as many of our channels and therefore enhance our relationship with them?
I think we're discussing this very often also within our brand. What is the unique thing we can offer in a brick and mortar store, which we can't do online? So this needs to be the differentiator to make the customer come back to a store, and it's experience in a nutshell, which you can't experience at home in the evening on your tablet or on your mobile phone. So what is this experience? And it's everything around the product itself. Try, touch and feel the weight of an earring, how it falls on your necklace. So things like this, you can do an AR experience and an AR try on, but you don't feel the weight, and you don't feel the jewelry on your skin. And this is something definitely which is a differentiator. So from a product point of view, but then also the service is such a key differentiator. You can do such an amazing job with well-trained staff, explain the creative vision behind the product, where the inspiration comes from, what is the material used, how much manual labor work goes into our products. So I think this is something the staff in the stores and our brand ambassadors in the stores, they need to understand this. They need to know how a product is produced and the different methodologies we're using to produce products. But then also this aspect of storytelling about a brand. We're a 125-year-old brand. We're having such an amazing history and collaboration we did in the past with strong designers like Dior and Chanel. We had collaborations with Karl Lagerfeld. We have done collaborations with entertainment. We're always part of the Oscars. So all these kind of elements try to bring this message across to the consumer, where it matters in that aspect. But customers are interested about your brand and keen to understand more than ever before about a product, about sustainability aspects. And we're doing so many great things, but we don't communicate always in a sufficient way all these aspects. And I think this is something where our store staff is a key element to differentiate the channels. And you know, it's always we need to link it somehow, but you can some of the elements you can play far better in a store through real people than just through an online experience. And this is the key differentiator I see, and we're also putting a lot of effort into this. We're having a huge training program and retrain on certain aspects on the new collection, really going deep into the creative process of a single item, what are the materials used, the crystals used on the item. So they understand a lot about the whole development of a new product line.
So it's really all that you're mentioning. It's kind of creating those other dimensions of value really that a customer is getting through mostly that really intimate interaction with the brand in itself through the people, but also the product in itself, and really kind of creating that very unique symbolism and meaning that therefore sort of builds further that dimensions of value. So it's those things that are, as you said, are really hard to do online. Yes, there are some elements that you can, but unless we have that really intimate human to human interaction, it doesn't really kind of, project as well, right? Is that kind
Absolutely.
of,
Absolutely. Yeah, I just can underline this. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
so if we're
especially
talking about,
jewelry, like you say, it's such a one-to-one and touch and feel and try on product. It's not just a book or electronic device which you can easily buy based on reviews and buy it online. Jewelry is a more emotional piece or purchase. So I'm fully with you on that one.
yeah, it's amazing. So if we think about some of those things, what could be some of the like really absolutely must-have aspects of any kind of physical store experience? Like, I don't know, name at least 3 or something. Any total must-haves, like every store should have it.
Yeah. I mean, right now, safety first. I think every retailer puts a lot of efforts into this aspect, that giving the consumer a safe environment within your store.
And do you believe we understand safety in a holistic enough manner? Because out of my experience and observations of what's happening, it's very limited in a way that retailers are providing safety, meaning they only think about, do you wear a mask? Is there enough people or too much people in the stores? And do you have a hand sanitizer? But perception of safety is such a, such a vast and heavily emotionally and psychologically charged concept. So are we actually doing enough?
I think you need to speak also on that element to your customers. Explain in a few sentences what you're doing to make the environment in the store safe, not just having sanitizer at the entrance is not enough. Yes, it's one measurement and one step, but having a quick chat towards with the consumer, if you can answer any questions on safety, go into a conversation, into an active conversation. I think that's such a relevant point right now for the consumer, and therefore not sure if everyone is doing enough. We encourage to take this topic actively up with a customer and speak proactively about it, that we're aware of the situation, we're doing everything we can to make this place a safe place. So I think you see, mixed approaches, I would say. The basics everyone has. Can you take it more proactive? I think some of the brands out there could be maybe even a little bit more proactive to tackle it.
That's great. So what about some of those other must-haves that we should have?
I mean, for me, looking forward is also what we spoke before, is the inspiration. and inspiration on all the dimensions, coming from the product, getting inspiration through a super service, giving to the customer, but then also this inspiration around the brand to explain much more around your brand. So I think that is something we need to consider. A brick and mortar store should be an inspirational place with all the dimensions we have. Not just a great architectural concept, but how we present the products, how we explain craftsmanship behind the products. So all these aspects should be fed in. And for me, this is such an important point, inspiration. And very close to it is the experience itself, the social aspect. A store is not just a place where you make a purchase. It's a place where a community of people with the same interests, with the same desire come together, and forming this store into a social place is also something I believe is very important. But then also this experience aspect I already touched on brand history and sustainability. It's so much more. You have a customer in your store, he takes his most valuable item, he has time and spends it with your brand, so give him the best you can give in return, and show what you do as a brand, what you stand for, not just a transactional piece of jewelry. There's so much more behind it, and this is something where you as a brand can create this experiential but also inspirational place for the customer to come back again. And this is all we want, to make the visit to one of our stores, to any brand out there, as an experience, and going out of the store and say, wow, I didn't know this about a brand, or I haven't seen the brand like this so far. And this is what we want to achieve, or we should aim for.
So that constant almost discovery, and that, like, like in any kind of normal human relationship, we kind of always learn something new about our relationship partner, right? And it's kind of the same thing. It's like every sort of, every moment, every interaction is a little bit of an extra surprise, a little bit more of an extra, wow, I didn't know that, right? Is that kind of...
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's kind of what I like doing as well. Makes sense. So obviously, I'm going to gloat a little bit right now. So I did fortunately have a chance to work with you guys on your new concept, and it was absolutely amazing. And I was able to finally see it in London in person, because it's a little bit different when you're looking at 3D renders and architectural drawings and other things. It just doesn't really give it a justice. And it was incredible. And I spoke to a lot of the employees in the store, and they're saying how happy they are to actually work in there all these hours a day, and how amazingly customers are interacting with it. So maybe tell us, everyone, what were some of the major considerations in this project that you sort of made sure that this concept really has?
And we had so many discussions with you on that point. What can we do to make it this experience and this inspiration for the consumer, and also walking into the store and having a feeling of like almost coming home, this warm and welcoming environment that you feel when you walk into your home. And I think this is what we have achieved through all the discussions. And the key elements for us was definitely to change the look and feel from our current concept, Crystal Forest, now to Crystal Studio, with changing materials, color palettes, shapes of the furniture, but also how we present the product itself, to get away from this barrier between the product and the customer, taking away the glass in front of the customer, give easier access to the customer. And already this is such a sign of trust towards our customers walking into the store, and a completely different experience to what we are having, what we had in the past. And the open presentation, the way how we display products, highlighting more the ones we want to highlight rather than showing everything we have in one go. It's a little bit of exploring the store with pulling out a drawer, seeing a different range, getting some inspiration from the wall elevation. So I think we know we did something right, because it's also reflected in the numbers and the customer feedback, and you confirm what we hear from service we did in the past couple of months. It's so much more inviting, easier to engage with the customer, and having this peer talk, not such a barrier between the staff and customers walking into the store. And small tweaks on this make the difference. It's not rocket science. If you you need to be guided, and thanks, Kate, for this one on giving us the right hints. But it's not rocket science what you need to do, but we made a big step forward, and we can build further on this.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I'm like, it's not always kind of quite intuitive for a lot of people when, you know, when we say, change the shape like that, move the color over here, you know, change the direction of the lighting that way, change the layout this way. And it's like, you know, but why? And then we explain, it's like, but no, but we were doing something completely different. But it was amazing how, you know, how you guys, everyone sort of listened and understood everything, and really kind of made an amazing application of, you know, of all that we advised. And obviously we were not designing any of this, but, you know, you were with amazing other agencies, and, you know, and the final result, you can sense it. It's precisely that thing. It's like you walk in and it just feels like coming home. And, you know, and I was speaking to the employees, and they were saying exactly the same thing, and the customers are saying that way, and they feel really warm. But obviously, we also all came up with the bar, right? The one in the middle. So tell us a little bit more about that whole idea of social interactions, considerations that, you know, that you made sure we also had as part of that experience.
The centerpiece of the store is, we call it a crystal bar. It's a place where you can sit down, take your time, make your choice in a quiet environment, try on easy access to products, and served through our staff next to you. So it's not standing behind the counter and serving you above the counter. It's more peer-to-peer conversation and giving styling tips in front of a mirror with a good light, so you really look good, not pale and gray. You just make yourself look good, and this is what we want to create. We sell jewelry which should make you sparkle, and I think we achieve this with this place in the store, where we're giving time to sit down, no rush. You can try on easily the things you look for, or get inspiration through the new collection, but also helping to find your wanted item or your preferred color through technology advice, tablet. We work in parallel with technology also on that one, but also again, the key element is well-trained staff.
Yeah, it's and I also noticed you did actually do this lighting selections, because I remember we had a little bit of discussion around it. So it was amazing to see that They actually have buttons on the mirrors that change the lighting from like, selfie lighting to daylight and stuff like that. So you can really kind of see how the product looks like and how you look like in various lighting settings. So it's really kind of personalized. I also, one thing that also employees mention in a store is that how much easier and more personal and intimate it is, because they have this special trays, which they basically use to put the actual product, not just like the boxes with the product, like they used to kind of bring from, from the back of house. And, and it really kind of allows them to create a better connection, and that it's easier for them to work and they have more fun with it. And it was such a simple idea, but, it clearly kind of works amazingly, and they're finding that they can really build that more personal and intimate relationship with customers.
Yeah. Twofold, the idea working with the tray and a pre-curated tray with product families or cross-merchandising items, it gives more inspiration, more ideas to see what is available in this range. And it also helps to speed up the process, to give easier access to the customer. So consumer doesn't need to wait for product to be unpacked. So we're having the full collection on the trays and helping to make the selection and get inspired by the collection. So also that one is super helpful to serve more consumers in a more qualitative way than in the past.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. So you mentioned tech a little bit, right? So obviously there was, I remember when we were working on the process, there was considerations for a lot of really cool tech solutions, but very subtle, sort of hidden. I don't know how it is in the other stores, but in the London store, I saw that you actually minimized quite a lot of that tech, and you sort of pretty much left some tablets on the sparkle bar and the cool selfie wall, basically, which everyone seems to be using, by the way, from what I've heard and the images I've seen. So what was kind of the thinking behind it? And do you believe that we should have kind of a lot of tech, or shouldn't be, or maybe it depends, as usually my favorite answer to every question goes?
Also, our lawyers have this answer very often. It depends.
Okay, I'm not a lawyer. Hold on a second.
No,
but I am a little bit more scientific head, so yeah, I get it.
No, I would say definitely if we're having a purpose and a real value for the customer, then it makes sense. If not, drop it. And we have tried things, and you need to try out. It's not always straightforward to make a call on technical elements or innovations within your store. Therefore, we're using a few stores around the globe to try new things and test things and see the results. What we kept with us is a tablet for the consumer, help to make or to narrow down the choice, because we're having quite a big range of 1,200, at least 1,200 items in the store, and sometimes people come with not a clear opinion, and we help them to narrow it down and make a good choice. So the one, and then the selfie wall, where we have quite undecided opinion within the store development team, but it works quite well. And this is exactly what we see as the connection between the offline and the online world, giving a moment of fame within the store, taking a selfie and share it with your social media out of the store. And this helps to create this link between offline and online, and also helping to boost the brand with an offline experience, sharing it into the online world. So, and people love it, you know, on a shopping trip, it's fun. You can use a little bit of augmented reality with it. It's a fun moment, and we don't take ourselves always too serious. And I think this should be also a purpose of shopping itself. It should be fun, and I think we're having a good success rate with that one.
Yeah, no, I definitely so, and I heard from the employees that everyone's just kind of, taking it and they love it, and so many funny faces on the, on a lot of those images that are kind of just flowing through the screen before you sort of take yours. So it's really fun. But in terms of tech generally in stores, where do you believe it's going? Would, should there be tech in store, and what type of tech, if at all, and where do you think it's kind of developing?
Mm-hmm. I think whenever it's down to the points I said, like what's the purpose, what's the added value for the consumer, then it makes sense. If it's a fun aspect, if it's helping to make a choice, or just a convenient factor of a fast checkout, use it. If not, then drop it. Simple answer on this one. Always look from a customer perspective. And if it adds value, the consumer will love it and will come back again. Give him a great experience.
Yeah, that's the thing. Always look from a customer perspective. We know very well that not always people do that, right? So it's still quite hard. And honestly, it's still quite new for retail industry to start kind of looking that way. It was always very much about, what are the trends, what's happening, and, and assuming that this is, what people want, or even not thinking about what people want. So it's still very much, it's still a lot of that mindset change that needs to happen, or because it's a cool toy and everyone else has it, right? It's this kind of, I need to be better than my competitor rather than I need to be truthful to myself and my customers. And I remember that, throughout this process when we were working together, you were always very much about, but yeah, but what about, who we are as Swarovski, and what do we actually want to get to our customers? What do they actually want from us? And it was, those questions that were sort of deciding on a lot of the solutions rather than, okay, someone else has this toy, so let's do that, right? So it's kind of that thinking, I think, that we need to sort of continue instilling in the, in the industry a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So we also have obviously a lot of kind of, changes in the sort of much bigger trends that are impacting heavily the sort of store portfolios or how stores are designed. One of those trends is obviously localism. So it already has been growing quite strong for a number of years before the pandemic, but obviously with all the safety precautions and everything else, localism became just a normal everyday part of life. And actually, what we were talking earlier about kind of uncovering little mysteries and surprises about a brand, that's what every customer has been doing right now about their neighborhoods. And they were like, and they had this moment of, wow, oh, I didn't know it's over here. This is amazing and such a cool experience and lovely story of that, of that family that owns the store and whatever else. So obviously our local high streets are starting to win, and fortunately they're starting to, be rekindled and really kind of starting to be invested into, which is long overdue, by the way. So where do you think that kind of will be going in a sort of next 10 years? And how do you believe it will start impacting, whether that's the general retail portfolio that a brand has, or maybe specific kind of design of the concept stores?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think we will need to differentiate between the brands. But what we see in general right now, and this is accelerated to light speed with COVID, obviously, through the fact that so many people work from home, and having not to travel to the inner cities, to their office places. We're seeing already right now traffic patterns and stronger performance or recovery rates for locations where we thought, oh, that might be a location which we don't keep forever. But now in out of city center locations, we're performing much better and stronger than ever before. And obviously also impacted by the lack of tourism that will come back maybe in 22, 23. But the home office will remain with us. And talking to colleagues in same industry, but also other industries, everyone confirms the same. Home office will be something which is here to stay, and this will change the traffic patterns of inner cities. And even if we think every employee will only do 1 day of home office, it's already a massive shift in terms of commuters and traffic within the cities, impacting restaurants, but also retail. So that is one aspect, and is accelerating through home office. But then we're having also developments around the globe, like cities of Milan, Paris, and Sydney, where they are working on these localized communities. And the city of Paris announced that they want to be the city of 15 minutes. Everything you need to be, you should reach within 15 minutes. Getting rid of more traffic within the city, open more bike lanes. So all this will accelerate this development of retail footprint as well, and change traffic patterns, and will impact the way how you choose locations and also formats in the future. There will be more localization. The consumer is willing and supporting this, and which is also right to do so, but it will change also traffic patterns and traffic numbers in some of the high streets where we thought this is always a no-brainer to be there, but it will get critical, and other locations will come up, maybe not in the same extent. And this is what I said in the beginning, also with this clustering of the store formats. You might need to look into different clusters of your stores, and having accessibility in a location where you haven't thought so far. And I think this is something we're going to see an evolution, a fast evolution over the next couple of years. If you want to stay relevant, you need to be able also to move into this direction.
And what do you think, what impact would it have on, on the sort of specific sort of local concepts? Because obviously some brands that have been already doing quite well in terms of localizing their concepts, such as, for example, Nordstrom, that created their Nordstrom local solutions, and, and have been really sort of running the show on that, or even a lot of brands that post the first lockdown started creating pop-up stores in various places where the customers decided to sort of spend and work from, such as, let's say, New Yorkers moved to Hamptons, and a lot of kind of luxury brands started creating pop-up stores over there. But obviously those stores are to some form or another quite considerably adapted to the local communities. How do you think that will impact on an overall concept design? Because obviously there has to be a lot of flexibility and adaptation, but how a lot is still, sustainable in terms of the actual business and investment and work that needs to go into it?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a challenge for the big chains. If you have hundreds or thousands of stores, how much can you be able to adapt to local needs? And I think you need to pick the right elements out of a concept where it makes sense to localize and keep the standard for the majority of the elements. Otherwise, you screw up your whole operations. But there are always elements where you can play and take a corner or a wall element where you can play local content. And I think this could be such a strong element for those smaller stores to create this local community and sense of belonging. And this is our home in the street or in this part of the city. So I think it can be such a strong element of these smaller stores to give it a sense of local flavor. And you, as a brand, you just need to pick the right elements out of an existing concept to make it feasible in terms of operation and maintaining it also with relevant content. But it can be such a strong element for the consumer, giving them a sense of belonging.
You actually mentioned something that I'm super passionate about, which is communities, and obviously brands that have been doing a really good job over the last few years have been either accidentally or sometimes strategically developing really strong brand communities. And obviously, stores have very often been forgotten as part of, of building communities. However, they are one of the best tools. What are you seeing in terms of, in a retail industry and development of new concepts? How much are you seeing kind of look into what is that kind of supportive element that a store can give to build up of a strong brand community, but not only local area, but generally kind of supporting an overall brand community?
I think Lululemon shows us where to go. On that one, they're turning their stores into a yoga class in the evening, and I think that's a great idea. Can every brand do something like this? Not sure, but at least you can invite your consumers in the evening after store closure for an event, for having lectures, not specifically about your brand, but invite a local artist to use your store and speak about any topic. I think you have the space. You think about possibilities to transform it easily within a few minutes or hours into a space you can use different after the closure of the store, and would make perfectly sense to create another space to meet, create the sense of belonging, the sense for a community beyond selling a product. I think this is so much more than what we're doing today, and we're doing these kind of local collaborations with local designers. Can we do more? Absolutely.
Yeah, so it comes back again to this fact that more and more sort of store concept briefs, for example, have the words of flexible or moldable or changeable or adaptable or anything like that, right? And it's this, and there's a lot of obviously predictions around, okay, but it's not just a single use. It's not just about being a store and selling a product, but really how can we sort of move it around, change it up so it can, sort of serve as something else at a different times, and support perhaps a community or support people in need or anything else, right? So there have been, some, for example, stores that turn out into homeless shelters in the evening and things like that. So, so maybe that kind of should be also a thinking in terms of local adaptability in a sense of that, of that challenge. Okay, so we have obviously a lot of challenges. So the one final challenge, which you mentioned already a little bit, is the aspect of sustainability. And let's face it, it's super hard and very expensive to design a store that is entirely sustainable in terms of all of its materials, energy that it uses, where things are being transported from, and everything else. What do you think retailers and designers will really need over the next 5 to 10 years? Maybe some innovations, maybe some other materials, maybe different ways of transport, or what can we do? What, let's say, entrepreneurs out there that are thinking about solutions that can create a much easier way for retailers and designers to really kind of come up with concepts that are actually sustainable?
I don't think it's too difficult.
No? Go on, tell me.
I think you have clear guidance on what is sustainable and what not. There are multiple international known certification processes behind this. We're working since 2013 based on a concept of leadership of environmental design. And if you consider this, that you want to certify your stores based on this process or certification, you need to tick the boxes along the way how you develop the concept. It starts with the design. Obviously, the materials you choose in the design process. It goes through the planning process, the site selection process, and I know site selection is never based on sustainability, but you can work with landlords out there who have a certified shopping mall. And there are a lot of landlords out there who are putting so much effort on this. And then it's easier to be part of their building with a sustainable design. But then also during the construction process, how you organize the waste management during construction, what are the safety regulations during constructions, what are the materials and the equipment you use with LED lighting, air sensors, daylight sensors to adjust the light. And you know, initial investment might be a little bit more expensive, but on the long run, we did business cases. It is easily compensated with lower energy consumption. So you can achieve this as a retailer. There are clear guidelines out there or certifications. We just recently certified another location with the new concept Crystal Studio in Chengdu, and we achieved the highest standard, the platinum standard, with this store. So you can build sustainable with clear criteria behind it, not just greenwashing or whatever you want to call it. There are really clear criteria behind it. And obviously we can't certify every single store. It might be too expensive in general, but we base our guidelines, our internal guidelines, and they're very strict. We're very strict on this one based on the LEED criteria. And we could certify every single store and it will hold against this criteria. So you can build sustainable as a retailer.
That's a great news. And there's obviously yet another sort of challenge later on is, I don't know if you know about Well Institute. So it actually deals not only, so it gives certifications to buildings and stuff like that. And it deals not only with the sort of the environmental aspect and impact, but also how the environments, built environments are impacting on people's overall well-being. So it, for example, considers air quality, perspective in terms of, you know, visibility and other things like that. Certain small amounts of psychological and emotional impact on a people. So obviously that kind of out of my own personal preference, that would be the next kind of challenge for, you know, for a lot of retailers following at least the sustainable aspects. Because when I look at a lot of buildings, and a lot of them are actually terrible in terms of the impact on, you know, on our overall well-being. And they, you know, they are very detrimental to overall mental health and social interactions and loneliness and isolation, all of the things that we especially experience in bigger cities. So that's kind of yet another challenge that, you know, that I think retailers should consider. But it's amazing to hear that the whole concept is already amazingly sustainable, and that you're sort of pushing the needle across that. Any final thoughts, any final predictions?
Predictions is a hard thing right now in such a fast changing environment. Yeah, no, not from my end. I think everyone needs to work on a long-term strategy, but being able to adjust it along the way. Also taking yourself sometimes a little bit back as a designer, as a brand, and listen to what the consumer really needs, wants to have, enjoys. I think that would be my final recommendation. Always start with the consumer first, and then you can't be wrong.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. That will be it for it. Thank you, Jochen, again, and goodbye to everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Kate.